Nashville is alive with music, sure, but creativity also thrives in our art, marketing, technology, food, and in every corner of our community. On Creative Assembly's The Spark podcast, our mission is to amplify Nashville's diverse creative voices, foster growth through shared journeys, and inspire a city that thrives on collaboration. Each episode will take a deep dive into the lives and passions of Nashville's most innovative minds. We'll explore their creative processes, the challenges they face, and power of collaboration, along with so much more. Welcome to the Spark Podcast, brought to you by Snapshot, a digital agency on a mission to serve with heart, execute with excellence, and build something bigger together. And now, here's the Spark.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Spark, Nashville's deep dive into creative strategy and purpose-driven leadership. I'm your host, Mark Scrivner, and today I'm really excited to be joined by Jacqui Hayes, founder of Crayons Marketers and president of AMA Nashville. Jacqui's work creates space for stories that matter, marketing that includes, and strategies that scale. We're talking inclusive marketing, leadership and community, and the power of purpose. Let's spark this conversation. Well, Jacqui, welcome to the show today. So incredibly proud to have you on the show with us today.
Thank you for having me, Mark. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Jacqui, just to kind of set the stage, maybe you could help take our audience through just your background, your journey, what got you here today.
Sure. Well, I'm a Birmingham native. I'm not from Nashville, and so I came up by way of Tennessee State University, in which I graduated, and just got into marketing. That's what I always wanted to do. I like to tell people that it started with shoulder pads. And so one of my favorite movies growing up was The Secret of My Success and Baby Boom. And in the 80s, all the women wore those suits with the big shoulder pads. And I just knew that I wanted to be in business. And so when I got to Tennessee State, I saw the Batman building. I was like, I'm going to have an office at the top of the Batman building. That never quite worked out. But I did get into marketing, and I just, I kept going up the chain in that. But eventually, life happened, got married, had a daughter, and you step back for just a little bit. And when it was time to come back with no family here, I decided to start my own business.
Wow. And in your early journey, were you like in-house or did you work for agencies?
We were in-house. I worked at an affinity marketing company.
Okay, Great. And so that's what got you to really start the agency. What inspired you to start Crayons Marketers?
Well, honestly, a little bit of my corporate, in the corporate space, there are so many different rules and things that you have to do when you're managing a large amount of people. But I wanted a space in which we had a little bit more flexibility. When my husband and I had our daughter, we didn't have any family here. And so I wanted the opportunity to be able to be present for her, to go to school for, Mother's Day events and all those different types of things without having to take PTO time. So when we created the agency, I did so with women in mind. Of course, it applies to men as well, but with women in mind, families in mind, to create an atmosphere in which women could come and continue to grow professionally. That shouldn't stop just because you start a family. You don't have to choose. And I didn't want women to feel like they had to choose between growing their career and having a family, because I don't think that's something you should do. So at Crayons Marketers, you can have a career, continue to grow professionally, and have a family, because you need to bring the kids into the office. That's fine. We have an extra office space. They can go in there and do kid things. If you have to go to, I don't know, a game, soccer game or something like that, take your laptop, email me between sets, so however that goes. And so we've really built a culture in which women or families, men as well, I don't want to leave our guys out because we have a lot of guys looking for that more flexible schedule as well. So families in general can come and not have to apologize for being a family. And I've seen that play out in corporate, in which women would tuck their kids away, or they feel very guilty about having to take time off. We don't do any of that. We want people to come in and be their full selves, and that includes being the mom, the dad, the family, and it be okay.
Yeah, well, I love that story, and it's so important, especially in this day and age. And after doing, some research, I just see like all over your site says this. I mean, you're building a culture of inclusivity.
Absolutely.
And that's really important to you. And I guess that speaks to...
It's in our DNA, it's our core values, is to really see people for who they are and to honor where they are and not ask them to change. And so, matter of fact, my first hire, she was a mom that we met on the PTO at our kids' elementary school. She just so happened to be in marketing, and when I posted my job, she didn't even respond to the job posting. She just sent me an email like, "Hey, can I come over?" Sure. Okay, and that's it. So she was hired. I knew she was in marketing. I'd seen her run the spirit store, so I knew she was organized. And so it was just a great dynamic because I knew what was going on. I knew she had school stuff. I knew she had 3 kids, and it was fun. And I was so excited that she chose our company to continue to grow professionally and to serve our clients in excellence.
Yeah. Well, what is the story? I think there's a story behind Crayons and Marketers. What is that? How'd you get the name?
Yeah, well, and if you ask my 18-year-old, she swears I owe her royalties, right, for this. And so I've been in marketing my entire career, so 25-something years. I don't want to age myself. But so been in marketing, but I did have, at one point, I took a little bit of a detour, and I was a financial advisor. And so during that time, I was studying for my Series 6 and 65, which, very difficult test. And so she was younger, so she wouldn't really let me study. And so I had a bag of crayons and markers, and I spread them out on the floor. And so I just started playing with that, crayons and markers, crayons and marketers. And that was the name of the company. At that time, it was just a blog concept. And so I adopted crayonsandmarketers.wordpress.com. And so Crayons and Marketers, the company, started as a small business blog that I would just put marketing tips on. And then one day, a good friend of mine, when I was getting ready to re-enter the workforce, she's like, "Why don't you turn this blog into a business? It'll look good on your resume." And so I thought it was just going to be something to look good on my resume. But I'm like, if I'm gonna do that, I might as well go ahead and try it, and that was 12 years ago.
Wow. How does like inclusive marketing go beyond like just representation and become like a business strategy for businesses?
Absolutely. Inclusive marketing is a business strategy, first and foremost. It is not a tactic. It is something that you have to live and breathe, because if not, it's performative and it doesn't matter. And so inclusive marketing is when you see people for who they are and you show that and you are proud of that. And so we weave that into everything that we do, but it has to show up around the table where decisions are being made. It's very hard to speak to a specific community if you've never engaged with that community, if you're not inviting them to share input as to how their product or service or whatever it is impacts their community. And so it starts within the culture of your organization first, and then it diffuses out from there. And you have to ask those hard questions. We created an assessment called the Inclusive Marketing Assessment, and we look at 4 areas. We look at talent. Who are you hiring? Who's in the pipeline? In addition to putting your job postings on your traditional channels, your Indeeds and LinkedIn, are you also looking at other job posting sites that may cater to certain niche audiences to make sure that they see it? Are you working with all the schools, particularly are you working with HBCUs, HSIs? How intentional are you about bringing inclusive talent, diverse talent throughout the pipeline? And then looking at your marketing assets, are you playing into stereotypes? And I really do. And so many people give our roles on conversations like this, but I'm like, this is something that I really do think that most faux pas in this area, when people make a mistake, is really unintentional. I don't think they mean to do it. It's malicious. I just don't think they have the right voices in the room to say, hey, this jeans ad talking about jeans may not go over so well, American Eagle. Somebody in the room wasn't there to speak up, or they didn't have the psychological safety to speak up, and that's another thing. So it's not just about having those diverse voices in the room. Do they have the psychological safety to speak up and say, hey, I'm a little bit offended about this, or another community may find this offensive? have you created a culture in which they feel comfortable doing that?
Yeah.
So we have talent, we have looking at your assets, looking at your strategy. I mean, who are you strategizing with? How are you strategizing? You want to look that there are some inclusive practices that belong in that stage as well. And then finally, looking at your pipeline of diverse suppliers that you're working with. If you're outsourcing certain parts of your project, who are you outsourcing it to? Are you intentional about bringing in and it's not just race. So many people think about diversity and inclusion as just race. It goes beyond that. And that's it's such a very narrow way to look at that. You know, diverse talents, backgrounds, abilities, it goes across the board. Even bringing in veterans, that's a point of diversity. So who are you partnering with when it's time to outsource that work so that you're giving, one, opportunities to other individuals, and then two, you're bringing in all that perspective. When they come in with their talent and their skill, first and foremost, they're also bringing in those diverse experiences that could enrich the project.
Yeah, Jacqui, I love this topic, and I know we're going to talk a lot more about it in just how we even take it to your clients. Mm-hmm. But before we get there, like as you've built up your agency, who do you look back and say have been some of the bigger mentors along the way that have helped like encourage or inspire or just be there for you?
Gosh, I don't let me start naming names. There's so many people. I'd say more so organizations. I think that's the safer bet. But organizations like the National Association of Women Business Owners, when I started business, when I got into business, matter of fact, I was still working in my job when I did that. I was looking for groups of women to connect with, because at that point I didn't have a really big network. And after sitting out for a couple years with my daughter, I really lost my network. And so when I mentor other women young in their careers, I encourage them, even when they decide to step back a little bit, to continue to network, because I did not, and that really hurt me, and I had to claw my way back up. And so I try to tell them to just keep the network going. But NAWBO was a place for me to build that network. And a lot of the partners that I work with now, Crayons Marketers has a collaborative model. We have core team, core staff within our organization, but we actively look for other partners to supplement so that our clients are getting the very best. You know, we have graphic design in-house, but if we have a large project like a Bridgestone, which we worked for them over a year, we brought in another woman-owned business that had an expertise in what we were looking for. And so we used that opportunity to collaborate. But I made a lot of those connections at NAWBO. And I tell people I probably wouldn't be in business 12 years later if it had not been for NAWBO, because of the connections, the collaborations, the learning, the education, the confidence, you know, being mentored by women in business who have very, very large organizations. And they are willing to, because it's NAWBO, reach back and help you and show you what to do and what not to do. It's just invaluable. And so I actually landed on the national board for 6 years because it was just such a fantastic organization that you want to give and give. And so we were able to do some amazing work as a board member during that time.
Yeah, well, I know you're involved in that as well as some others that we'll talk about too. But you know, and that's just such a good lesson for agency owners, creatives, like, you know, just getting out there and staying networked into the community to learn, like, what are people working on? What are some of the new projects, and who do I need to know out there?
Right. In Nashville, you know, it's such a small town. Kind of feels like it, but it's really not. It's a lot. I mean, everybody does know everybody, but you still have to go out and be very intentional about making those connections. I was just telling my marketing intern that same thing. I was like, you know, when you're not here, look for those opportunities to go out and make connections, because it's, as we always hear, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that is a true statement. And even taking it a step further in terms of personal branding, we like to say, you know, who know you, you know. And so are you doing those things to get your name out there so that people say, oh, I've seen you here, I've seen you there. All of that is a very strategic thing that you have to plan.
Yeah, you're so right. Nashville is the biggest small town out there.
Great way to put it.
What do you think is a big misconception of like agency owners? You work with a lot of creatives, and you're involved with an organization that has a lot of agency owners in it. What What do you think is a big misconception that maybe agency owners have when they start their business?
A misconception that we'll just take any type of work. And that's just no. You know, starting out, maybe you'll take things that you really don't want. I mean, because you have to pay the bills, you have to kind of get your seed money. But if you're an established, even a smaller business, some things you just have to say no to. If the client is misaligned with your values, or if the project they want to, sometimes you have clients that they want to tell you what the strategy is. And I'm like, well, you did hire me. I am like the professional here, but they still think they want to do it. I mean, those types of things, it just isn't worth it. So I think the misconception is that we'll just take anything, or that we can just be treated in any type of way. And so when I sense that spirit, I just let it go. I'm like, this is not going to work, because we are formidable in agency. We've done great work. We've worked with large clients. We have the receipts to show. So we just don't have to take anything and say, well, thank you so much for giving us a shot. No, it's, we're bringing our value to partner with your value so that we can provide a great value to our client. So that's the biggest misconception. We bumped into that recently, that we can just treat small agencies anyway, and that's just a hard no.
Yeah, well, you all do impressive work. You work with some very big clients. Where at in your journey did you start to niche down and not take on everything?
I'm not as niched down as I'd like to be, but we have narrowed it down. We work with professional services, nonprofits and associations, and government. So those are our areas. But even within professional services, you have credentialed and non-credentialed, and nonprofit and associations, those vary as well. So those are our primary buckets. But we knew we wanted to lean into these areas because that's what we have the expertise. And we love our nonprofits. We just have such a heart for nonprofit and the work that they do, and they've had such a hard year. And so one of the things that we spent a lot on time on this year is helping our nonprofits message programs that may have to sunset because of a lack of funding. And that's a very nuanced and a very delicate conversation, because it's people being impacted, be it staff or the individuals who are recipients of the services. That is a very nuanced conversation that we have to be very careful when we relay those messages.
Yeah, it's a great point. Man, it has been a tough year for nonprofits.
Year.
So what along the way, what's been a project that maybe you're the most proud of that kind of blends your culture and strategy?
Gosh, I love all of our projects. I mean, we have the best clients, and I say that, and everybody says that, but we really do work hard to... Our clients treat us as partners, not as hired work. It's not a transactional relationship by any means. And one of our largest clients is on the West Coast, and we are their marketing department, have been for years now. And so it's such a tremendous amount of trust that they put in us, and that we take that very serious, because I'm sure it's some marketing firms out West that they could be working with that are a lot closer, that could come into the office. I mean, we don't even go into the office often. And so, but we have such a great dynamic, and we have such respect for what they do. They're a multicultural market research firm, so it's so aligned with who we are. And we've learned so much from them because we're doing all this research, consumer data. So a lot of our strategies are powered by real insights from this company, because they're out there doing the work constantly. They're researching. They're getting feedback directly from consumers. And so when we tell our clients insights about audiences, it's not things that we think, it's things that we know because we've seen the data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned remote. Is your team in office, or is it hybrid?
We're in office.
Okay.
Well, great question. So we're hybrid, really, because we're stretched out over 4 states.
Okay.
So we have 3 people right now in the Nashville office. We have a team member in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. We have another team member in Dallas, Texas, and another team member in Florida.
Wow. How do you, with everybody spread out, I mean, I know you've got 3 here, but how do you spark the best ideas in that environment?
Well, first and foremost, we want to make sure we like each other, right? And so I created this program called the Weekly Water Cooler. And so in an office setting, right, you go into in the break room and you have the water cooler. That's where everybody comes in to talk about non-work related things, just kind of chewing the fat and hanging out. But since we don't have the benefit of doing that across, so many states, and so we have a weekly virtual water cooler, and we have a screen background that looks like a water cooler. And so we're like pretending to be just standing around the water cooler, and we can't talk about any work. This is about all the things that are happening in life and just kind of cutting up and having a good time. And so, because it's important for me for culture that we like each other as people first and foremost, so that we can trust each other as professionals when it comes to work. And so that weekly water cooler, matter of fact, I had one this morning, happens every Wednesday, and our team jumps on, pull up the backgrounds of the water cooler, and we're at the water cooler talking about life. And then we have our regular meetings throughout the week when we talk about client work.
God, I love that idea. That connection and the water cooler, and let's not talk about work.
Yeah, we're just enjoying, we're learning about kids, we're learning about all the things that's happening in these different areas. And so we have a very high employee retention rate. We have low turnover, very low turnover. We recently had someone leave, but she just got such a great opportunity, couldn't hold her back from that. But she had been with us for 7 years. So we have very high retention, and we're proud of that. And I really do think we can attribute it to the culture of the organization.
Yeah, that's great, Jacqui. I mean, retention in this space is just so important, especially when you have accounts people working with your clients, that.
Right. Right, and they like consistency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How you mentioned a little bit earlier, like of pulling in designers when your designer was, maybe maxed out, and you brought on a big campaign. Like, how do you approach like the collaboration with other maybe agencies or partners that you have?
Absolutely. Well, collaboration is a stated core value. It's one of our 6 core values, and so that guides us. And so we're always thinking collaboratively. And I have a small group. Honestly, I tell people we don't just ask anybody. That NABO group is real, but we have added a couple more collaborators through another group that I'm in, Brain Trust.
Okay.
And so that is a contingent of amazing women, all striving towards I wish it was $100 million, the $1 million mark. And that was founded by Sherry Georgeman because she has such a heart for empowering women. And so I've pulled some collaborators in from Brain Trust, one of which we do a lot of great work, including one of our Bridgestone projects. And we're very proud of that because we rebranded all of their ERGs. We created some internal frameworks that they use globally. And this is not just a Nashville-based initiative. These are frameworks that they use across their global business. And so we were very proud of that work. And we did it collaboratively. It's just, I'm not interested in being the only one. And so again, I like to bring people with me. And so I'm like, who can I bring with me on this project? So it's not just about us, it's our project. And I think that's why people like working with us, because we're not the person, we don't white label. I tell people from the beginning, this is our collaborator, so we don't white label. So you may get an email address from a person that doesn't have a Crayons Marketers URL, but she or he is very much on the team. But transparency is also one of our core values. So we just don't white label. We just upfront, this is the collaborative team supporting you on this project.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate you calling out Brain Trust too. Sherry's a good friend, and
she's amazing.
Love everything she's done for the Nashville community, as well as like for female entrepreneurs with the Brain Trust. It's been amazing. I need to have her on the show as well down the road. Oh my gosh,
you better call her next.
So what do you think has been, like, what's one misstep that you wish brands would avoid when they're speaking to diverse audiences? I know we touched on it earlier.
Yes.
But
making assumptions. That's the worst. That's the worst thing any of us can do, is just assume that we know it, and we don't. So making assumptions is the most harmful thing that you can do, because you may be unintentionally perpetuating stereotypes and harm that you don't even realize. And so it only takes just a little bit, particularly for brands, companies. It's no excuse for that in the world when we have so much market research, even asking AI, right? I mean, it's just no excuse for it at this point to make assumptions when it's so, you can even get the desk research. I mean, these research that's already been out there. So it's just no call for that, to just guess at it. And then when you guess wrong and it ends badly, it could have been avoided.
Oh yeah. And you see it from time to time.
Yeah. And we see it quite a bit. You know, one of the things that we like to do is we like to study ads that just get it wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
You're like, really? I mean, and if you look at it, the things that they got wrong were so easily to see in the beginning. But again, if you don't have the right people in the room, you just don't have the skills and the experiences to raise the flag.
Yeah. How do you all measure success in like campaigns that are rooted in like inclusivity?
Yeah, and so we're definitely looking at, you look at your metrics, of course, and that's any marketer. You know, look at your metrics among the target audience group to ensure that you're resonating. And they'll let you know, I mean, are you getting any negative feedback? Are you getting feedback at all? And feedback is often seen as a negative, but it's actually good. Now, of course, no one wants to be splashed across, the front page for a misstep. But when you're getting feedback from your audience, just read it. Try to set aside offense, try to set aside fear, and just read it, because again, those are some of those markers that may not show up in the data metrics that you need to know that can inform your campaigns moving forward. And so that's one of the ways in which we're measuring. What feedback are we getting from people? Are we hitting our metrics? Of course, we don't work with a lot of B2C brands. We're mostly B2B. But, if a brand, we're looking at that and they've put out a campaign in that way, are your products moving or is it resonating? When we look at Fenty Beauty from Rihanna, to see how fast that took off, it just showed you that people of color were looking for more inclusive color palettes. And she launched that in such a way that it was immediately relevant for that particular group. And you have to think about that across the board when you're launching something, when you're targeting diverse groups. Who's in the room? Are you doing your homework? What is your creative? What's your message? And again, taking it back, the true strategy starts with who are you as an organization. It has to show up there first. And that was the problem during 2020. We had so many people make commitments about reaching out to diverse audiences, and then they didn't have the structure internally, so it rung very hollow. So you really have to look at how we run in our organization. What are our core values? How does it show up? How diverse are our teams? And again, thinking beyond just race, how diverse are our teams, and does it show up in how we're presenting to the world? Because that's what you're going to be assessed on.
Yeah. How about like, people are going to mess up from time to time on that. But like, I guess responsiveness to that, how important is it?
It's very, the last thing you want to do is hide. I'm of the mind, and people probably are very careful, because as soon as you put out a statement, as soon as you say something, people can use that all different types of ways. But it's always better to address it. If you made a mistake, just say, hey, we blew this. We clearly did not do our research. Of course, you get with your attorney, your comms team to create the right messaging, but essentially owning up to it, because we're all human. I don't always get it right. And so no one does. And so owning up to, we missed a mark here. Clearly we didn't ask the right people. We didn't have the right people in the room. And I have such a respect for brands that can do that. Just say, I missed it. I just straight up missed it. And I think people are very forgiving when you are honest and say, hey, you did miss it, but let me show you how you cannot do it again. So many people would be willing to volunteer, like, why don't you do this time, or help, get the research, bring the people in and talk about it. But you can't do any of those things towards healing until you own up to the fact that you just missed it.
Yeah.
You just missed it.
Do you, and I love this conversation, so helpful. Do you Do you ever see, like, on the flip side, do you ever counsel, like, your brands of, like, you're going too far with one, you're being too strong with this campaign?
Yeah, because you can go over the top, and sometimes you always want to be culturally relevant. That's the thing. Be culturally relevant, but it doesn't mean, for example, if you're targeting African Americans, doesn't mean you need to put in African drum beats. You know what I'm saying? And so it just over the top. They just may want to hear a nice song. And so it just, again, it goes back to understanding your audience, taking the time to do that and not speeding past that piece. And that goes across the board for everybody. And again, it's not just race. And so if you're targeting, doctors or supply chain professionals, they're human first. And so that's another thing we have to realize. You say, well, my decision maker is this title, this role, this individual, but they're humans first, and they bring their human self to their job decisions. And so you still have to understand the full person, so to understand what motivates them. And so if you're targeting, supply chain professionals because you are trying to, sell something, what's important to that person? Is it looking good in front of their boss? Is it getting a promotion and being successful in this particular thing is going to make them more attractive for hiring? So you really have to ask bigger questions other than when you're building out your personas. What's the job title? What's the demographic? Go deeper, get into those psychographics about what motivates people to do A, B, and C. It takes more work. It may mean you have to slow your campaign down. And with some of the clients that we work with, that is one of the challenges, is getting them to slow down and be willing to take the first 30, 45 days just to understand the audience, so that when it is time to put the campaigns together, we have a good understanding of who we're trying to reach and the messages that would be most resonant with them.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great point again. Jacqui, it's so obvious that you are, like, passionate about what you do, like, and how you approach everything. Like, what is it that you love the most about what you do?
I ask myself that. What do I love about marketing? But I just love good marketing. I love when I can really think about a campaign that truly motivated me to take an action. It is such a thing of beauty when you have a marketing campaign that actually achieves the desired outcomes, because there's so many campaigns that don't. It's so very easy to launch a campaign and you not see any lift in your sales or whatever you're tracking. It's very easy for that to be the case. But when you can put together a marketing campaign with the right image, the right messaging, all the right support, and it actually achieves the stated outcomes, it really is a thing of beauty. And I enjoy that. I enjoy when our campaigns do well, and we're so transparent. Again, that's the core value. When something doesn't hit the mark, we say, hey, something that we're doing here is not working. Let's look at it. Let's look at what we're doing. Let's make adjustments. And I think our clients have appreciated that honesty. We have so many people who, before they came to us, they're like, I've never even seen our website metrics. I'm like, how do you work with a marketing company and never see your website metrics? But that has happened even with a nice size client in which they've never seen their metrics, which tells me that the marketing company wasn't getting results and they didn't necessarily want to share them. But that's just it's not fair to your client, number one. And two, how are you looking at the metrics? You need to know that information so you can tell if what you're doing is working. I think it's just a thing of beauty. It really is an art and a science to put together effective marketing campaigns, and they do exactly what you want them to do.
Yeah. You're so right, though, on the, just website and metrics, and even, like, I'm spending all this money for you. Yeah. What's the return on the investment? Like, how sometimes clients, they don't understand. They've never seen it. They've never had a report given to them or even had a call about it. And I guess, for us, and I'm sure it's similar to you, is we see that you spend the first couple months just building trust with the client, because maybe they've are untrustful of agencies when that happens.
Because they've been burned, right? And and you have to go into those types of situations with empathy, because they probably have been burned, or they probably spent a lot of money and don't have anything to show for it. And so we like to tell our clients that we get in the trenches with you. We roll up our sleeves, and we're dedicated to solving the puzzle. Why aren't my campaigns working, or how can I reach this audience, or better yet, how can I reach new audiences? Because that's what a lot of brands are finding themselves having to do now, is that they are having to find new audiences, because people shifted after the pandemic. I don't know if you saw that or not, but consumer behavior shifted substantially. So people, of course, we moved online, but people just valued things differently. They purchased differently. And we had to keep up, and we had to pivot with how they now buy, how they consume information. And so some of the things that we actually didn't experience any dips in revenue during that year. We actually grew that year, because our clients were fighting invisibility. And we had people coming to us like, hey, we can't get out like we normally would. We need to create more strategies so that we can go and get our message out. So we saw growth that year. But what is a remnant of the pandemic is that we still see that people have not returned to those pre-pandemic ways. They're still getting their information primarily on digital. And so you need to make sure that you're there.
Yeah. That's, just going down the same path of like talking about good campaigns, what is one that maybe you've seen lately that they've just done it right, that beyond the ones that you do for your clients, is there one out there that stands out to you?
Gosh, so many. One of my favorite, two. Okay, it's two. So any of the Cadillac, what's their new electric vehicle? Is it the Icon? I forgot what it's. The Lyric.
Yeah.
It's the Lyric. It is so, you can just tell that they're targeting Gen Z, professional Gen Z with good jobs. It is very clear to me, but I love it, because I'm like, gosh, this legacy, storied brand, that has been around forever, has created a community with young people. And I think they've done it beautifully. I love it, love it, love it. And then it's the Geico little Geico lizard. They've got one commercial in which, because I remember this song when I was in high school. I remember doing a majorette routine off of it, but it was it's a Gen Z student watching her parents dance to this old school song, and she's looking at them like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And I just see myself, my husband and I, and my daughter. I was like, this is our family. Me, her walking into the kitchen. I'm doing some silly dance from way back in the 90s, and she being completely confused as to what's going on. I think that is brilliant, because it was so relevant, and it took me back to a very nostalgic time. And I could tell that they did the homework. Oh my gosh, I'm like, they did their homework with this. And it was just, I love it.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me, I'm always impressed when you can honestly tell when people have done the work. They have put the work in to pull out the things that are relevant to the audience that they're targeting. I mean, that is a nuance. For them to pull out this old 90s song from my high school days, that was, somebody did some homework.
Well, we're gonna shift gears here just a bit, and you run an agency. You've got all this extra free time. I know you're involved in Brain Trust, and but you're also the president of AMA Nashville. I guess, like, with that, like, what excites you the most about our city's creative and marketing community?
We have got a lot of amazing creatives and marketers. There's a lot of marketers here, which is good and bad, particularly for agencies. That means it's more competitive, even for career professionals, more competitive. But, I always look at competition as opportunities. Yes, you want the job or you want the business, but, I do also believe that what's for you is for you. And so if it's meant for you, it will come around. And so you don't have to take it so serious, right? And you can just enjoy fellowshipping together, sharing resources, sharing advice. And that's one of the beautiful things about AMA Nashville. So for people who don't know, AMA is American Marketing Association. And so we're a national organization, and we have a chapter here in Nashville.
Yeah, we're members of it, and you guys do such good work, and we're proud to be a part of it too. So
Yeah, we're excited about this year. One of the things that we want to do is that we want to get our membership just super excited about learning and connecting them to even more resources. And so for any CMOs listening, I'll be reaching out to you because I want to bring in Nashville-based CEOs, individuals who have just achieved a certain level of excellence in their careers, to share a little bit of how they did that, because you have to see it in order to do it. And sometimes people don't have access to that. Even within a big corporation, they may not ever bump into the CMO at their level, and we want to close that gap, so that they get the information, they can see it, they can continue to strive, and they're getting it firsthand. So we're going to be doing a lot of outreach over the next few weeks.
yeah, it's so good to hear too, because I know before COVID, NAMA did so many great big giant luncheons and great speakers, and like every professional organization that had to deal with COVID, and we're all remote, and nobody wanted to go to these big events anymore for a period of time. You just everybody I've seen, it's been just challenging to get it back.
We're still recovering from it.
So it's good to hear your focus being there with, bringing in the CEOs and
for our thought leaders. And that's what we were known for. We had a lot of thought leaders luncheons in which we bring in amazing speakers from across the country. And not saying that we're not, so if you're an amazing speaker from across the country, we still want you. So we're not saying that. But we also have some amazing talent right here in Nashville, and we want to feature that.
Yeah. How does your work at the American Marketing Association, the National Association of Women Business Owners, and you're also on some other nonprofit boards, I think, too, right? So how does that influence your agency's values?
Well, again, our values are set regardless. We have our 6 core principles, but one of our core values is giving back, and so that's just by nature who we are. We're just givers. Pencil Foundation, I serve on the board for them. I'm secretary of the board this year. We were their Crayons Marketers, was their first product sponsorship. So we're super excited. Can you guess what we donated?
Lots of crayons.
Right? How can you not, right? With a company called Crayons Marketers. And so we donated, I believe, about 1,500 packs of crayons when we were their first product sponsorship. And so, for a small business, that's a big deal. That's a huge budget line item. But giving back is part of what we do. We are inspired by our kids. I have a kiddo, an 18-year-old, and she's just so excited about life, and she keeps me young, and she keeps me plugged into what the young people are talking about, and they have big dreams. Our kids are not lost. They have big dreams, and we have to invest in those dreams. And so we have on our site and on this core value that we are trying to inspire the next generation of content creators, and you do that by showing up.
Yeah. How have you seen the Nashville marketing scene evolve since you've started your agency and continue to grow it?
Well, being as a small business, we had to really work our way into getting into those spaces because I wasn't necessarily in it. And so it took a lot of networking. It took a lot of joining organizations like your NAVOs and AMA and attending events. But I think one thing that it is still collaborative. And that's one thing I appreciate about Nashville is that we'll get together and we'll collaborate. And that's how we make it better for everybody. It's not enough for my company to grow. I need to bring somebody else along with me so that we can all grow. And I think that makes for a healthier ecosystem. So when we get those occasional people who are just so cutthroat, and there are a few out there, they want all the work. They don't want to share and play nice in the sandbox. We have to move away from those types of individuals because that's just not the culture that we want to create. And I think for the most part, most marketers want to work together to do amazing work, to work for our clients.
I've seen that all along the way too, as we've grown Snapshot and I look at it and go, we've always had an abundance mindset. There's so much business out there that we couldn't all do it. why not collaborate? Why not work together? Why not refer business back and forth,
Right.
that doesn't make sense for you?
Yeah, exactly. So we do referrals all the time, and we don't have, and there's nothing wrong with this, but we just don't do it. Like there's no referral credits or percentages or anything like that. We just like, hey, take the work, this is not for us. We don't do this. Why don't you do it? And it's absolutely fine. And then you're hoping that you're sowing a seed for somebody else to turn around and do the same thing for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that, being in the roles that you are, that you probably get from time to time people that come to you and ask for advice on, I want to start an agency.
Mm-hmm.
Like what kind of advice do you typically give in those situations?
Well, I love to give advice. Well, to do the work. It's important that you get ready to do the work. Starting a business, I think there's a misconception that, oh, you own the business, you can do what you want. No. It does not work that way, particularly if you're trying to start a business and grow a real business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the first things that we did when we started the business, and I knew I wanted to hire because you'll never scale if you don't have more people, if it's just you.
Mm-hmm.
And, I didn't want it to just be me. So we hired an employment attorney to build out an onboarding program so that when we did hire, they were coming in a formal process, right? Instead of just feeling like, hey, I'm just going to. Now, true enough, my first hire, we knew her, but she still had to go through the formal process that we had created. And that's one of the things you need to, if you're starting an agency, first and foremost, it's not a vacation job. This is something you're going to put a lot of work in. And then two, I recommend that you get associated with some type of a business program, an accelerator, or the EC, the NBIC, or some of these other programs, so that you're going to be held accountable to putting together a business plan, putting together a marketing plan for your business, how you're going to grow it, getting into a catalyst program or something like that. People that can walk alongside you to help you grow. Now, I didn't do that. So this is me on what I wish I had done. Now, I've since made up for it by being in a ton of programs. We were a graduate of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program and a few other programs. But it would have been amazing to have some of those early stage programs in the beginning so that we wouldn't have made so many missteps, or we probably could have even been larger because the learning curve wouldn't have been so long.
Man, that's great advice to an agency owner. And you're right. I mean, a lot of people do start an agency and they go, I don't want a boss. And it's like, well, now you have a bunch of bosses and they're called clients.
That's such a misconception, yes.
So
yeah.
How about a trend or maybe an innovation right now that you all are keeping an eye on?
I think everybody is doing this. Artificial intelligence, AI is really transforming our industry. I don't know what you're seeing from the video standpoint, but people ask us all the time, are you nervous? And I'm just like, not really, just for the simple fact that we do good work and nothing will ever replace human ingenuity, but we do keep up on it. And we use it within our own organization, not to replace our work, but to make our work better. And to also, matter of fact, I've named our chat GPT Kathy. And so she's the 7th person on our team. And it just helps us run more efficient, And I think instead of being afraid of AI, we talk to our clients about how we use it. Again, transparency is not a big deal. We still are doing the work. You can look at our Toggle time tracking system to see that we are still very much doing the work. But we just use it like you should use any technology, to use it to enhance what you're doing. But we are keeping our eye on it.
Yeah. What's your favorite read or resource that you're into now?
One of the books I read here recently was The Gap in the Game by Dan Sullivan. Have you ever
Great
read
one.
that?
Yeah.
It's an excellent book, and it's such a simple methodology, right? And so, we just talked about it, that abundance mindset. When you are starting to get nervous or fearful, or start to second guess yourself, are you operating in an abundance or a gain mindset, or are you in the gap mindset in which everything is bad? It was an easy read, but it was a really great, I enjoyed that. And I struggle sometimes with business books. I mean, I have to listen to them because I never read them. But this one I just went right through it. It was really a good book. And I just recently finished the Let Them theory.
Okay. What, as we start to wrap up, just one last question for you. Maybe I got two.
Okay.
What's one thing that maybe would be surprising to the audience that they wouldn't know about you?
Well, I have my motorcycle license.
Really?
Yes. Now, with that, I do have that still on my driver's license. Now, I wouldn't just get on it and go because it's been a long time since I've done that. But you can actually go to Nashville State and take a class. At least you could.
Okay.
And take a class. And at that time, particular group of friends, they wouldn't show me how to do it. It's like, they wanted their bikes, and I understand it. So I went to Nashville State, took a class, and you have to, it's a full-out class, and then you have to take a road test, and then you pass or fail, and I passed, and you take it, and you can get the distinction on your driver's license.
So do you have a motorcycle?
No, I do not.
So
No,
an
I do
interesting
not.
fact is you have a motorcycle license with no
right.
motorcycle.
And again, even if I had one right here in front of me, I would not just get on it and go. It has been a very long time.
Wow. Well, Jacqui, as we wrap up, and I feel like we could talk all day, but as we start to wrap up, is there anything that maybe I didn't ask or that you think could help the audience?
Well, just to say, just be kind humans. I feel like that we're in a space that it's a lot of concerns and a lot of tension. Let's just be kind to each other. I think that is the cure to all problems. If we're kind to each other and that we think about how our decisions are going to impact somebody else. Again, it can't just be about you and that you get yours. It has to be the collective, and that's how we improve it for everybody.
Yeah. Well, Jacqui, this has been such a great episode from,
Thank you. Thank you for
being
having me.
involved in everything you're involved in. You're helping shape so much of the Nashville marketing community, business community, to just your message about inclusivity and how you do it for your team and you also do it for your clients has been really inspirational.
Thank you.
And just you're right, being good humans to each other.
Being good humans.
And
right.
helping lift each other up, which is the whole reason why we started the Spark Podcast and Creative Assembly. So I appreciate you being a part of it. I know the audience is going to take a lot of great lessons away from this. And so thank you. That's a wrap of this episode with Jacqui Hayes. Thank you for inspiring us to reflect on the role marketing plays in culture, community, and impact. If this conversation sparks something in you, be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share so that we can continue to bring great content to the Nashville community. Until next time, keep that spark alive.
And that's a wrap on this episode of The Spark from Creative Assembly. Thanks for spending time with us and exploring the minds shaping Nashville's creative future. If you're walking away more inspired, connected, or energized, that's exactly the point. A big thank you to our sponsor, Snapshot, and the incredible team behind the scenes who make this show possible. Your support fuels every conversation and keeps collaboration alive. So if you haven't already, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, stay creative, stay curious, and keep that spark.